Hi class, welcome to Aztec 2.2, which is chapter 4 in the textbook, and we'll cover the life cycle as understood by the Aztecs, the Mexica, and the Nahuas. Now, the question we'll be going over is understand and describe the life cycle in an Altepet, which is a city, state, and a people, from birth to death and the afterlife. And as you can see, you're going to need to interpret the slides as indicated. Just a quick update on the terms Aztec, Nahua, or Mexica. The Mexica, the one we're not listed on here, would be the name used in Nahuatl to describe those in the city-state of Tenochtitlan. Tribally, they would know each other socially, linguistically, culturally as the Mexica. They're one of many tribes in the Valley of Mexico. After the conquest, this empire, led by Tenochtitlan, was defeated by Spanish, numbering in a few thousand or less than 2,000, and then tens of thousands of Native American allies from other city-states. That's for another class. But after the empire is conquered, the Spanish and Europeans tend to use the word Aztec to describe the empire, which is fine. Just a reminder that the entire population of the valley wouldn't see themselves as Mexica for sure, and certainly the word Aztec would be a little foreign to them. It refers to an alliance between three city-states that after 1425 came to take over the area of Anahuac. So that's where the word comes from. Again, most of the world uses it today. There's no way you're going to get 7 billion people to use a different word. Besides, we don't really have a really good one to describe all of them together because they're all different, right? But there are some things that kind of unify them. And so in American academia, the term Nahua was coined by the 1990s. And that's supposed to be the cultural congruence of all the various tribes because of their speaking of Nahuatl. So to call all of the tribes Nahua is a way in English to try and say the Nahuatl speaking people. Okay, so Mexica, Aztec, and Nahua, you should understand that. Now on to kind of how life went. An understanding that, of course, life cycles were materially and occupationally different between noble and the commoners. And what we go over is kind of a melange or a mix of all of this. The beginning of the chapter lists the rules that are put into place. You can see there are a lot of rules of self-deprecation and to not be greedy and to be kind of humble. And these were dictated by the Native American sources for the Franciscans that give us a lot of our information about the pre-conquest world. And gender does play a strong part in the life, as it does now, of humans for the most part. An idealized household father and all adult Nahuas were expected to be married. Not all were, most likely, but in a heterosexual coupling and family, with or without children, depending on if they could have them. And the father was seen as in patriarchal societies as the supreme head of the house, with the household mother being placed in a position of power, but under his, and with, as you'll see, slightly different responsibilities. But the father definitely is seen as the kind of the lord of the whole house, while the mother is the lord over female activity and people under female management. There could be, by the way, extended family as well. We're going to put that on the side. Now, male children around, again, you have to think about this because you're kind of thinking as a group, but in all the different city-states, this is really going on. In Tenochtitlan, they're going to be able to do more and more warrioring and priesting, so they can have a lot more people involved in religion and in the army than other Altepets, because they're receiving tribute to help subsidize the economy, right? So that frees up people to do other things. But generally speaking, in all the Altepets, whether they're Mexica or Texcoco, right, or Alcopua or Cuitlahuac or whatever, the male children was ideally expected to become a farmer and a warrior. Okay, and a male, and you'll see some of the other tasks. While female children were expected to be running the household activities mostly, but as you can see, as you will see, this kind of extends beyond the home as well. If it was a male child, then they took the umbilical cord and they buried it out in the field, or maybe took it with them to war and buried it out in the battlefield. And this would be seen as tying the child to the outdoor activities he would do in the future. Again, this is an idealized account of what's going on. And then the female children, it did happen, but there's just not one set of things, except for female children, more likely, their umbilical cord, after it was severed, was placed under the hearth in the house. The hearth would be in the center of the house. It's the fire that doesn't go out, that you keep it going at all times, even as embers, so that you can cook. So the umbilical cords share an interesting story, definitely. On our picture to the right, by the way, which is a double picture, you don't have to learn in this one, but a grandmother and a wise lady are kind of telling the mother how things are done. Interesting, huh? So the male child in the upper right is being taught how to be a man, and down in the lower right we have a priest. And so a lot of they would end up living different lives than the commoners. They would in fact be involved in making sure that all of the tasks that needed to be done, the religious tasks, were carried out correctly. And for this class, we do not have the time to go into all the religious tasks. They were a daily and multi-daily involved experience of different calendars all operating at the same time, a very complicated one. But be aware that some of the males then would become priests, and they would kind of take on a different life than the main one we're going to show you here. There was time for leisure, especially the more noble you were, of course, right? And the closer you were to the center of the empire, the more leisure you had. And the book shares with you a few of the diversions and games that they have. Patoli is definitely a game that did survive. I have a copy of one in my office if you want to come by and check it out. So the festivals, the various religious festivals are also very important in the yearly activity of time they had off. So the ritual calendar was again a 260-day calendar, Tonalpo Wali. And again, they would use the material wealth they had of feathers and incense and jade and human sacrifices and special ears of corn and all sorts of items in parades, processions, and sacrifices and temple events and burning incense, is what we would call it, are all going on. So that's kind of, without getting into the life to death, what you're reading there in the first part. Okay, now let's go through the items, and I see these are not named, so we're going to name these to A and B, and I apologize for that. Didn't notice that these ones were not named. Okay, so life cycle, we're going to begin with pregnancy. Pregnancy, as you'll read in this section, pregnant women then began to go through various activities that they would go through helping the woman go through pregnancy. And there were also precautions. For example, one that probably stuck out to you is they can't eat tamales. That had become stuck to the cooking pot because then the baby wouldn't be able to come out. Couldn't go out at night or look at the moon or the rising moon. So they had various rituals they went through to help protect the mother and then the baby. And when the woman went into labor, there would be a variety of activities and baths they would go through with the midwife to help pregnancy go faster and be safer in their minds. Now, much less today, but still happens today, women do have a chance of dying in childbirth. And when this happened in the Aztec period, she would now be kind of revered as a goddess, and they would bury her much differently. And people would seek relics from her body, her hair, or even, believe it or not, their middle finger. So, but we're going to assume everyone makes it. Or if the mother's not present, these pictures following are a little different, but we're just going to say the mother made it. Now, looking on the lower left, and so the umbilical cords already told you about where they get buried, onto bathing. After relatives come over for a period of time and do the appropriate religious ceremony, a few days, and documents differ on exactly how many, but the document at the top says 4 days, a bathing of the infant occurs, and then the child will receive a name. So up at the top, document A, even though it's not well laid out for this video, you can see the baby being brought by the priestess or the holy woman that's in charge of this, and bathes the child and gives it a name, as you can see. So there are various symbols depending on if it is a boy or a girl above the bath. And by the way, to the right, just so you know what's going on, there's 3 children who are eating beans and maize because they're being told to do so by the wife. Also, if you look carefully, we have a reminder of when the codices are saying they are speaking, you see something like a croissant or candy cane coming out of a person's mouth. And also look, you can see the black footprints. This means that a person is moving. All right. On the lower left, we have another naming ritual drawn out, also in the Codex, but we're going to call this CM, or document B. And in document B, the priest on the lower right is carrying out the proper rituals. The lady, the mother, is on the lower left with her 2 horns of hair. You can see that. The man, the father of the child, is on the upper left. He has a mat. Men will have mats to sit on, women won't. That will help identify their gender for you. And you can see everyone is speaking and participating in this ritual after birth. And so, as you can imagine, they would, the mothers would nurse the children, and a naming moment. I want to stick on that for 1 second. I've hinted at this for some of you. The book does mention a variety of names. The more you go up the nobles and more you go towards Tenochtitlan, then the fancier names will be given to boys and eventually also to girls. But this isn't common for the whole area. Fairly typically, if you went and looked and somehow could create a sense of all the baby names, what you'll tend to find is that the baby boys, the newborn boys, try to get names the Aztecs considered honorable and macho, so male honorable, and that would be, eagle, snake, obsidian, with other words added in. Whereas baby girls were more often named first, middle, last, or something along those lines. There's a whole article on that if that interests you. If you want to know more about that for your project, then contact me. There's a electronic version of the chapter in a book that describes the naming process and what names we have on record. As they grow, here we go into two more codices that you should start to learn. I'm going to go over them with you and slightly test you in our Zoom call. You won't need to get 100%, but we'll go over each of them so that you're very strong in your ability to assess a Native American document about the Aztecs. So in this case, we see the toddler ages, and the age is indicated to us by the 4 blue circles above the child. And if you look carefully then, I'll go through it, CM1, on the left you have the father, and you can see he's wearing his cape and his loincloth, and he is speaking or teaching his toddler how to behave properly. And the toddler boy gets half a tortilla. If you look to the right of the boy has his tunic, but he doesn't get a loincloth. The lady or mother of the house on the right for the top one is in fact teaching her daughter how to behave. She also gets half a tortilla, and it doesn't, in neither case do we know exactly what they're being taught at this age. Going down then to our second, now 4th document, training 4-year-olds, you can start to quickly see what's going on. If we go left to right, the father is teaching the boy how to carry something. We don't know exactly what the task is. He's 4 years old, and his ration for each day is 1 tortilla. The daughter on the right, who is the same age, seemingly, is now, as you can see, being taught to spin cloth. The mother is talking to her how to do that. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. The gender is already differentiating what types of activities they're going to do as adults. Now here, as a little bit older, but not teenager years yet, on the upper left, the boy is receiving instruction, and in this case it seems to be collecting reeds and cutting reeds. So whoever made this is kind of a family near reeds, where a lot of the male activity is going to be harvesting reeds and processing them. On the lower left, the girl to the right of what's up on top is still getting instruction on spinning cloth. And if we go to the 5th document at the bottom, now the daughter is getting a tortilla and a half. The mother is, of course, still speaking, but you can see the daughter is now starting to use the spinning and learn by example, by doing itself. Okay, it's off camera, but I can see the Spanish scribe says muchacha de 6 años, so it's a 6-year-old girl. All right, moving on to the 8-year-olds and the 10-year-olds. We go to punishments, which I know isn't funny, but makes me chuckle a little bit every time. So we again have engendered punishments, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Up on the top, it's a little off screen. It's actually a 9-year-old. We have a disobedient 9-year-old son who's being bound hand and foot by his father, who then will stick him with maguey, very large cactus spikes, into his shoulders and body. Down below, actually to the right on the top, a disobedient girl of the same age, is also treated, though less harshly than her brother to the left. On the bottom, we have 10-year-old children who are too lazy, and so they are beaten by a stick. In this case, they're both boys. No, that's not true. The guy on the left is a boy being beat by his father with a stick, while the girl is tied up and being beaten by the mother for being lazy. But I guess we've moved on from being stuck with the spikes to being beaten. So that's number 6 or 8. And you should be able to interpret the tortillas, the men, the women, the boys, the girls, and you can see the blue circles of how old they are. As we get even older, the punishments become more, well, if it's not happening to you and you're looking back hundreds of years, maybe interesting and funny. The boy on the top, an older child, we won't worry about his age. He's also at a tortilla and a half. He's in trouble, and so they have taken hot chili, chili peppers, and they're dried most likely already, of course, and then they're burning them and making a terrible smoke, and then placing the child over it. You can see the daughter is going to get the same punishment over on the right, while a 12-year-old boy and girl down here on the bottom, the boy has to lie in a pokey, spiky mat that makes him uncomfortable for long periods of time. And so he can't sleep is the idea, while the girl on the right has to get up and sweep her house, even though it's the middle of the night. So she has to sweep her house repeatedly. So the little circles above the girl and mother, that indicates, according to the indigenous scribe, that it's nighttime. So that's how we know she's being woke up in the night to do that. So going through some of these punishments, as you get towards 15, there would be a division. It depended on if you're noble or common, and if you're a boy or a girl, or if you entered the priesthood. If you're a boy or a girl that enters the religious cults at this time, then your trajectory would be different, and we're not covering it right now. The higher you were towards nobility, and more boys than girls went to the Kalmakak. That is the school in which they would be instructed in items that they expected educated men, and a few women, to know. And that would be, what is truth? What are the gods? What do they do? What's our history? Any morality. They would learn all of this in the public school. And so that's number 8. Number 9 is super interesting. It's marriage time. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. All right. So at some point after 16 or so, young men and young women, with or without parental help, it runs the gamut. Again, the wealthier you are, the more noble you are, the less you have as for your marriage choice, and the more the family gets input. But however that came to be for a young man and a young woman, they would have a marriage ceremony. And this number 8 shows us about that. So the father and mother of the bride are on the left, and for the groom on the right. You can see there's plenty of gifts in the middle, which most of them, the Spanish scribe wrote comida, food. And then special religious people bring the bride in. Can you see that with the black footprints on their back? So the bride, the male is there, and the female is brought in with various fanfare. You can see the ladies going in with her. And then on the mat, the groom and the bride, go through the rituals and the sayings. And then notice what happens in between them. They tie their cloaks together, and they tie the knot. So cute. So that is, again, an idealized version of what would go on, but, for more wealthy, for all couples would go through something like this, but they may be more elaborate depending on how more noble you were. Number 10. We see up on the top and the bottom men preparing for war. So this will be a big part of the male life, especially if you're in Tenochtitlan. And we're going to go a little bit more into war in the next unit, and we're even going to get to read a section about how women would sweep the home to co-participate in the war. Number 11, and this will be the 13th altogether, we see that the state had, according to the scribe, various punishments. Down below, thieves and drunkards have been put to death for their crimes. And on the right, the two adulterers, male and female, are about to join the thieves and drunkards in the picture to the left, in death together under the blanket, ceremoniously that they were in fact using. So one finds fairly strict rules, drinking pulque when you weren't supposed to, having sex with people who were not your spouse, were two of the high-level crimes you could commit that could get you into a lot of trouble. Interestingly, if you were an old man or an old woman and you wouldn't be breaking the drinking rules, but people would kind of let you break the rules and say it wasn't breaking it if you were old. When it comes to death and the afterlife, the Mexica and many of those around them I call Nahuas, they had thought a lot about dying. Dying was nearer in their minds to them than most the students at Gonzaga are. It's something that our culture kind of ignores or puts off. And so because confession to help them in the afterlife was a one-time affair, they were really careful not to do it too quickly. But if death was coming slowly and at an older age or by disease slowly, they would have the time then to have the proper ritual with the tlapoki, who had the proper books and could read the proper prayers. And that way, Tetzalipoca and Tlazolteotl could hear the prayers, and could the Tlazolteotl especially could help cleanse them, because she was the eater of filth, which is one of my favorite Aztec gods. That's for sure. There would be a variety of self-harm as harming the body as part of this confession as well. And it was kind of seen as a beginning of a funeral rite that would carry on into after the person had passed away. If the more noble you were and the wealthier you were and the more towards the center of the empire, the higher chance it's possible that you could be buried. And you'd be buried with a variety of items, and it would be a big honor. You'd be very fancy to the rest of society if that happened to you. So it didn't happen a lot. For the vast majority of people, they were cremated. They were wrapped in a cloth, right? And then the decorations on it, depending on how wealthy you were. If you were a wealthy family, you put a lot of decorations, including the famous feathers, onto that. And then they would collect the ashes, as is common today, and then keep them somewhere in the house, in the household. It was kind of interesting how that would happen. Now, the afterlife itself, we have Mictlantecutli at the top as the male kind of lord of the afterlife, and Mictecasiwat down below to the right. Now, this is important because I want to introduce a new Nahuatl word, even though this is not; these have not been labeled as the ones you have to memorize as part of this unit. I do want you to kind of look at this word. So siwat, as you can see in the middle of the end, that's your big word of the unit. That means woman. So that would be easily for you to determine which of these two lords of the underworld is the male and which one is the female. So most people in the Valley of Anahuac, whether they be Mexica or other, went to a place on the lower left called Mictlan. And Mictlan was overseen by hold on.